All right, so so I'm in the student protection unit. This started back in 2013 because student loan debt was just skyrocketing. Does anybody know collectively how much Americans owe in student loan debt at this point? You want to take a guess? Billions? You're very low. It's low as a trillion is low. It's about 1.8 trillion. It's the second largest consumer debt behind mortgages. So tonight we're going to talk about ways to finance college and reduce borrowing. The average graduate last year graduated with about $31,000 in student loan debt. That equates to about $300 a month for 10 years. So that's a good chunk of money, $31,000. But on the flip side of that coin, can anybody tell me how much the average college graduate earns more over their lifetime than somebody with a high school diploma? And it's not trillion. Can you take a guess? 1.2 million. You're close. It's just shy of $1 million. It's like $980,000. So if you think about $31,000 in debt, the return on that investment over a lifetime, it's a good return. But tonight we're going to talk about ways to even reduce that even more. So the first thing you need to do is fill out the FAFSA, and in order to fill out the FAFSA, you need a federal student aid ID. And you can get that at studentaid.gov. An FSA ID is just your login. It's your login and password. If you have an older child who you've already done the FAFSA with, you've already created one and you keep it for life. Students, if you've not created yours yet, I would do that. Log into studentaid.gov. You keep that for life. So parents and students have their own unique FSA IDs. They are going to uniquely enter their own information. You're going to keep that login for life. So I'd write it down on a piece of paper to get someone to remember. And you fill out the FAFSA every year, the year prior to when you're going to be going to college. So you're going to need this on an annual basis. All right. So some big changes with the FAFSA. It used to be, well, for a while, it was October 1st. The Obama administration brought it back to October 1st back in 16, 15. So over 10 years, it was October 1st, which worked out really great because it gave colleges enough time to process the information and present financial aid packages so families could make good decisions as they're going through the college application process. This year, because the Department of Education has revamped the FAFSA, it has been backed up to December. A while ago, they were saying, well, December 1st, and now there is no date. I check their website. I get email alerts when it happens. I'm sure that, Anyway, so by law, it has to be done by the end of the month, so December 31st. So worst case scenario, that's when it will open up. Okay, going forward, though, next year it's going to go back to October 1st because it really is much easier for families, especially the colleges. They crunch. Okay, so the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. This is for all of the federal student aid. Federal student aid is Pell Grants. There's another grant. There are direct loans from the Department of Education. That's this. But everybody uses this to put together a financial aid package. And New York State uses it also for TAP and some other financial aid. So it's pretty important. And as I said, they have made some pretty good changes. One of the biggest ones is they reduced the number of questions. It used to be like 108. They've gotten it down to about 30, 32, depending on how some questions are answered. So they've really simplified it. What they've done also is they have really focused and put emphasis on the student filling out the FAFSA. In the past, many parents were just doing it for their kids. Their kids were happily going through college, and then they just were not cognizant of the debt that they were acquiring, and then they had to start dealing with it. So the Department of Education, in revamping this, it's very student-centric to get them in the game, and so they are conscious of, so that you, students, are conscious of the amount of money you're borrowing, and so that you can, after graduation, be ready to step up and start repaying. Okay, so some of the changes are great, and I may editorialize a little bit. Hello, it's going to be on video, but I don't. It doesn't matter to me. But when I'm editorializing, it's not the official thoughts of where I work. But I'm a parent, and sometimes I like to just clue parents in a little bit. So, because it's student-centric, the student starts out filling out the FAFSA. So they get their federal student aid ID, and then they log into the FAFSA. And the FAFSA is broken up into several sections. And the first section is the identifying information. Who are you? And all of that information is going to be pre-populated from the federal FAFSA ID. So if you have a FAFSA ID, FSA ID, and you set that up, years ago, it may be moved, you changed your phone number, or that email address you're not using anymore. You can't change those on the FAFSA. You have to log into FSA ID, update them, and then it'll port it onto the FAFSA. So just be aware of that. So the first part is identifying information. At the very beginning, the Department of Education requires, as part of the ability to get federal financial aid, a consent. So they're going to ask the student to consent to an information share between the Department of Education and the IRS. And that's going to happen automatically. In the past, students and parents would enter financial information, income, the most recent tax return, asset information. In the past, to enter tax return, you could either use the IRS data retrieval tool, which you would click on, and port you over to the IRS, you'd log in, you'd verify, and then you'd authorize it going to the Department of Education. Or you could manually enter the information onto the FAFSA. Now you cannot do anything except provide consent. So just want you to be aware of that. And so the student is going to start filling out the second section. And this is a series of questions to determine which parent or parents are going to be needed to enter their information on the FAFSA. So they're going to ask information like, do you live with both parents? Yes or no. If you live with both parents, are they married? Yes or no. If they're married, did they file married joint, or did they file married individual? And it's going to go down the list of all of the probable scenarios. It really is. And they've done a great job of explaining each section. In fact, they've done such a great job in explaining it. If there's additional questions, there's a tab by each question. You can click on that. A new window will pop up and give you even a more detailed answer. So they've done a very thorough job of explaining each step. Because, families are all different and sometimes very confusing, and which parent or parents. And so they're gonna walk the student through this, and in the end, it's gonna tell the student which parent or parents they need to invite to enter their information. So when it tells which parent or parents need to enter their information, your kids are going to have to ask you for some personal information. So your date of birth, your social, and a good email address. Because they're going to enter that information in, and then you as a parent are going to be getting an email from the Department of Education with a link. You click on the link, and it'll port you to your section of your kid's FAFSA. You will not be able to see anything else, and your kids will not be able to see what you put in. All right. You also, as a parent, need to provide consent for the information share, and then you're going to have to enter asset information. The student also has to enter asset information. But a lot of times it's much simpler, less complex than a parent's, like savings account, checking account. Yes.
How does the system choose which parent? Is it based on their income?
So the requirement is if a student's parents do not live in the same household, if they have their own separate households, it's based on whichever parent the student lives with the majority of the time. So I would say this, just a little helpful there. If your family is in this situation, parents have their own homes and there's custody, it doesn't matter who claims the child on the tax return as a dependent. Excuse me. It only matters whichever parent the child spends most time with or financially supports the child. So here's a little trick. Not trick, but here's a hint. If you separated or divorced and you're amiable, I would have a conversation about both your incomes and whichever, especially if you live in the same town and your kids go back and forth and spend about equal time. I would just ask, and then whichever parent earns the least amount is the parent that the child should say they live with first. Because then the child is going to receive more financially. Yes.
I just wanted to ask one question. I was at a conference a couple months ago that they were talking about the tax credit, that it was the parent that's not true. Parent that claims that year. A lot of parents rotate, like to change years.
Yeah, it's not based on that.
Okay. That was like 2 months ago when it was to me asked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, students' assets are usually pretty simple, just checking savings and that kind of stuff. Parents' assets can be a little bit more involved. So basically, all of your assets, apart from the equity you have in your primary residence and your retirement accounts. So anything else they're going to ask for asset information. They made some big changes this year that are not setting well with a lot of people. So it used to be if you owned a small business and had 100 or fewer employees, you were exempt from listing that asset. They've removed that exemption. So if you own a small business, no matter what size, you need to put down the equity that you have in that business. So if you own property, equipment, whatever, yeah. Another one is if you were a family farm, you were exempt from reporting any asset information in regards to that. They've removed that. So family farmers have to list the value of their assets from land, buildings, machinery, livestock. Just to let you know, there's about 5 Midwestern states that are suing the Department of Education to put it back the way it was, because most farmers are asset-rich cash poor. So anyway.
So if you have a lot of assets, they can deny more of financial aid.
Right.
If you are.
Yeah, they take into consideration your income and assets.
You say retirement accounts would not.
They're not included, right? So whatever you've got in your IRA, your Roth IRA, 401k, any deferred comp off the table. Yeah. But any investments, like if you just have a brokerage account, you'd have to list that. Another change they made this year is in the past, if you had more than one child in college at the same time, each child would receive the same amount as if they were single. So the family as a whole would get the multiple of how many kids were in college at the same time. They changed it to the family gets a certain amount and then it's spread across all the kids that are in college at the same time. That's huge. That's huge. In early October, I was at a district. The father came up to me and said, "We have triplets in college next year." Yeah, I know personally myself, we have our oldest daughters are twins, and then my son is 18 months younger. So we had 2 in college, 2 in college, 3 in college, 3 in college. And then my youngest came to college. We had two in college, and then one in one. So it's, So the only thing I can say is, because people come up to me and say, because I work for New York State, I'm not the federal government. I'm just giving this information to you. If you find some of these things troubling, contact your federally elected officials, and they'll probably start with our senators. If I'm not telling you to or not telling you, it's just that's the approach, because it has to be fixed at the federal level. So they're also going, and I'll just mention this as parents because I think you should know what is going on with your kids, even though they're seniors and they're quickly becoming adults. I still think you should know. I'm a father of 4 kids and a grandfather. But so they're going to ask your kids other questions. One of the questions is they're going to ask your kids their sexual orientation. They're also going to ask your kids their gender identification. So they go down a rabbit hole of these kinds of questions. And I was on a call with some state student advocates in the Department of Education. We were like, what does any of this have to do with financial aid? And they said it really doesn't. We're just, we want this for information research purposes. Okay, it sounds Orwellian. Data is never secure. I don't care how much they tell you. You can always hack into stuff. And I don't think it's anybody's business what your kids. So anyway, same deal. If you find that to be troubling, you can proceed. Okay. So in the assets, a couple other changes. So in the past, if you were on the receiving end of the child support, you would just list that in your income category. Now it's considered an asset, so you can list that as an asset. Just add up all 12 months, and that's going to be the number you're going to put down. So does anybody have a college savings plan, 529? The parent's going to list that in their asset bucket. That doesn't change, but in the past, if a grandparent or other relative had set one up with the student as the beneficiary, the first year it wouldn't be listed, but then the second year and ongoing, it would be listed in the student's column, and they've done away with that. So I don't know if they're trying to encourage other family members to set up 529 savings plans, but that's another change that they're making. So, all right. How's everybody feel? Good. So it is easier. It is simpler. They've changed some things that I think are completely unfair. I think they go down a road in some places that they shouldn't. But it's my personal opinion. So another thing, you're gonna kick out of this. So parents, you're not parents anymore. You're called contributors. All right. So the word parent is stricken from the FAFSA. You are now contributors. When they fill out the questions, it's going to identify the contributor or contributors that need to contribute their information. So just to let you know, if the student has filled out everything, they're part of the FAFSA, and the contributors have entered their part. If you as parents are the last to enter your information, you're going to see the submit button on your part. All right, so please submit because then it'll go out. The last part is good. It's the colleges that your student is looking at, and they bumped that up to 20. So that's good. It used to be 10, and there were ways to add more after you submitted it, but now they've just bumped it up to 20, and so that's good. So we can talk a little bit about strategy here if you want. Yeah, that's good. So a lot of folks, I'm an advocate of a broad net initially, and you're in the initial stages, although in typical years, you're a little bit past the initial stages. But so I encourage parents and especially students to not narrow in this is where I'm going to college. And then what happens is when when a student gets that mindset, then parents kill themselves and maybe do things that aren't as financially wise for their family, so their kid can go here. And so I always encourage, well, you know what, there's a lot of different colleges that offer similar programs that have similar academic standing, and they may start competing for your student to attend there. And anybody go on college tours yet this fall? Yeah, yeah. You come away with a T-shirt? You did, yes. Has anybody ever gone to a timeshare sales presentation? Yeah. Yes. And do you ever notice the similarities? Sure. They are very similar. All right. So college is a business. They earn money. They get money through tuition, fees, room and board. And they want your child to buy them. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're buying a big ticket item. And usually when you're buying a big ticket item, there's a negotiation room, right? Can I just be honest? And I told my wife I was doing this, but I'm really doing it now. I'm buying a car, and I found this car on Auto Trader down in North Carolina. My brother lives down there, so it's easy. But it's a very specific car, and it's something that it's not new. But so I talked to the dealer a month ago. Haggle. I said, well, I'll let it pass. Well, it's still for sale. Guess what? I emailed the salesperson yesterday, and she told me today, and I dropped the price another $1,000. And guess what? We're very anxious to sell the car by the end of the month. Yeah, so it's very similar with colleges. I just want you to be aware of that. So many people apply to colleges and they get financial aid packages and they think that that's it. It's not. That's just the start. The first offer is never the best offer. And there's always negotiation room in any, even SUNYs, which their margins are pretty slim compared to private colleges. So I always encourage students to look at multiple colleges that offer similar degree programs, have similar academic standing, even expensive private colleges and universities that have tuitions, north of $50,000, $60,000, because those institutions have endowments, and those endowments are there. People give them money, and they're there to offset the list price and to offer scholarships to get students to take that. All right. So the colleges that you put on the FAFSA and the colleges that your student applied to are going to be sending out financial aid award letters, and we're going to talk about that through this process. All right.
So say you applied to put on your FAFSA UB above state. Does UB know you applied above state?
No, they don't see each other. Yeah. Very good. Okay, so everybody's submitted everything and click submit. The student's going to get an email from the Department of Education about a week later called the Student Aid Index, the FAFSA Submission Summary. That's a new name for the same thing, Student Aid Report. It's basically just a summary of all the information on the FAFSA. Just double check it. Make sure that your kids are tuned in to email from the Department of Education. If there's any errors, you can log back in and make the correction. All right, so let's talk about the formula that colleges use to formulate financial aid. And one of the numbers is on that FAFSA submission summary, and it's called the Student Aid Index. That's changed the name from expected family contribution. That was a very bad name for that number because it wasn't what families were expected to pay. So this is a number. The Department of Education has a very complex formula that they plug in your income, your assets, all that information, and they put this number on that FAFSA submission summary, and the colleges get that number, and that's what they use to determine financial aid. We talked about family size. All right, another number the colleges use is the cost to attend, and that really is what it means. So it includes tuition and fees. I want you to notice. That's not. I'm going to go back to the chalkboard. Second bullet used to be called room and board. Language shapes culture. Now it's called food and housing. Anyway, they estimate those last two bullets very generously: books, transportation, supplies, even spending money. And here's one way to save a boatload of money. When I'm talking to just students in assemblies or classrooms, I always remind them that they are broke. They are broke, right? It's the contributors that are earning the money. And yet, when you go to a college campus, and those of you that have toured this year and have been on colleges lately in the past, 5-10 years, there is an atmosphere of affluence there that was not there historically in years past. So I went to Alfred back in the 80s, State, and our dorm room was cinder block, and there were pine bunk beds. The mattress was that thick. There was one big bathroom in the middle, and there was zero privacy. And you went through the cafeteria, you picked up a tray, and you went through the line. You're like, oh, that's what I'm eating for dinner tonight. Now, when you go to a cafeteria, what are you met with? It's like a food court at a mall, right? It's very fancy. Dorms have become much more luxurious. It's not basic housing, right? When I went to school, I didn't have rock climbing walls. I didn't have glass wall racquetball courts. I didn't have a putting green. It was education. 4 years, boom, get your education. Now there's a college experience, and people are paying for it by borrowing a lot of money, and people are graduating with a lot of debt to have 4 years of luxury. So that atmosphere of affluence comes with some peer pressure. And when the college estimates the cost of attendance, they factor in some very generous numbers for the last two bullets. And they're going to put together a financial aid package to cover 100% cost of attendance. They are. So what happens is you as a family decide, your child decides where they want to go to college. You let them know, you send in your deposit, boom, saved seat. And then the college lets the Department of Education know, New York State Higher Education, all of the financial aid folks know we're the one that they're going to go to. And then they set up an account in the financial aid office in your child's name. And then all that financial aid comes in. And then registration day at the beginning of the semester, college pays itself, or it might be a little bit before that. College pays itself, tuition, fees, room and board. And then the money left over in the student account at the financial aid office is meant for all of these ancillary things. And yet it can be thousands and thousands of dollars. And so, and it's the worst kind of money because they leave the worst sitting in the account. It's already charging the student interest. So I would encourage you to have a conversation with your daughter or son because the parents are not informed of this. The college doesn't care what the kids do with it. It's their money. So just have a conversation with them. Hey, at least the first year, how much is left in your account? Oh, there's $3,000. How much do you really think you need for books and all of the other stuff? How much do you really think? Well, I think I could live on, $1,500 or $2,000. Then you tell the financial aid office to return whatever you don't need. If you do that in the first 30 days, it's as if you never borrowed it. If you do that every semester, that's $8-10 grand less in student loan debt that the student's going to be graduating with. So, highly encourage that. We receive complaints from New Yorkers about their student loan debt and student loan lenders and servicers. And we actually had a new employee start earlier this fall, and she had $30,000 in student loan debt. She was in her mid-50s, and she emailed me, and then I got in touch with her by phone, and she was upset. She's getting on where she's thinking about maybe not working the rest of her life, and she's got this debt. She said, it was only about $6,000 back in the 90s when I went to college. You know what else she said? The sad thing is I didn't even really need the money. But I got the loan, and she just spent it on whatever. She can't even remember. So, live like a pauper, kids. You're broke. Enjoy the poor college student role when you get out and get your start your career. All right, so I'm done being a grumpy dad. So let's talk about the formula. So they check the cost of attendance, they subtract out that student need index, and the balance is the financial need of the student. The financial need is met with these products, and we're going to go through each of those in more detail. Then the college is going to take the cost of attendance. They're going to subtract out the amount of aid that was awarded in the previous equation, and the balance equals full cost of attendance. And that's non-need based aid. And that's these three things. So direct unsubsidized loans, plus loans, and then there's a teach grant. So are any of your kids thinking about, or students, are you thinking about going into education? Good, good. So there's a lot of upfront grants and scholarships available. And then at the back end, there are some really good student loan forgiveness programs. So yeah, just wanted to be aware of that. You want to maximize grants and scholarships, work study, and federal subsidized loans. You want to minimize unsubsidized loans and then private loans. And we'll go into detail as to why. So grants and scholarships are free money. You don't have to pay them back, except there are some strings. So that teach grant, you have to teach in a high need school district for 5 years, otherwise it turns. We're going to talk about the Excelsior Scholarship in a second. That has some strings. A lot of times scholarships that come from the college have some strings. Like my son got a really good academic scholarship at the college he went to out in Ohio, but it required him to maintain a certain GPA through college. And his mother and I drove him out there, got him set up in the dorm room. He surveyed the landscape and said, "This is going to be fun." And so he thoroughly enjoyed his first semester out there. And guess what happened with his GPA? He didn't flunk, he didn't bomb, but he went below the threshold for that scholarship, and that scholarship went away, and there was no way for him to get that back. So just be aware of that. So grants come from the Department of Education and from New York State, from government. Scholarships come from all sorts of different places. We'll talk about that in just a second. I do want to highlight that last bullet there. The College Board Profile or CSS Profile is a common scholarship application that some of the more expensive schools across the nation use. There's 324 universities and colleges across the country. They use them, and starting at the top from Harvard and Yale and Princeton, down through like Vassar, Hamilton, Colgate. I'm trying to think of some other New York colleges, Cornell, Young. So inquire if the private college or university that your student's looking at uses that. I highly encourage you to fill it out. It is like the FAFSA on steroids. So they do like a 3-year look back for tax returns. They look at primary residence equity. They're going to look at your retirement accounts. They want to look at equity you have in vehicles, toys, whatever. You've got a coin collection in the basement. But it's a deep dive, but it does open the door to significant amount of money to bring down the actual cost to that. All right. Pell grants are the main grant from the U.S. Department of Education. It's about a $7,400 maximum award amount, about an $80,000 maximum family adjusted gross income. And it's proportional, so the higher the income, the lower the grant amount. There's also a supplemental grant available, and then the teach grant already talked about. New York State has TAP. It's the tuition assistance program. It's basically a mirror of the federal Pell program, except the award amount is about $2,000 lower, so about $5,400 a year. When you fill out the FAFSA, it's automatically going to send that information over to New York State Higher Education. But this year, because the FAFSA is so late, and if you want to get a number for TAP, they opened up the application process a couple weeks ago. No, they've opened it. They opened it up to fill out the application for TAP, just so people get an idea of at least what that is. Yeah, it's open now. So if you're interested in doing that. New York State has about 17 other grants and scholarships available. So I would definitely log on to ask.ny.gov and review those. And some of them, I'm very familiar with. The STEM scholarship, is it the top 10 or the top 5% of the class? The academic excellence?
New York State academic
Yeah.
we do it now based off, we do it on top five.
Top 5. Okay.
Five, because it used to be region-based scores, but because of all the exemptions,
Yes.
top five, if they're staying in New York State.
Okay. All right. So there's a ton of different scholarships available. I would definitely look into it. A lot of them are really geared to certain career fields. And, anyway, that's good. I'll just make a side note. So if money plays a role in a decision of where your student's going to go to college, and you can't wait till January, February to get a financial aid award letter, you can contact the financial aid offices at the college or colleges that your students are applying to, and give them your most recent tax return, some good basic stuff, and they'll put together a tentative financial aid package if you need some more information as part of that decision making. Especially, a lot of colleges are sticking to the early decision schedule, and that's now. It's like coming up right now, and yet families need money plays a part in where they go. So you can definitely contact the financial aid office and provide them with the information they need for them to put together a tentative package. All right, so the Excelsior Scholarship is free tuition to any state university, SUNY, or if you're down in New York, City University. It applies to families up to 125, so that fills the gap between 80 and 125, brings in more folks to get financial aid. The application is completely separate from the FAFSA. It never has been a part of it, and that is generally March 1st, but it's been late. Was it last year or the year before? It was like May. Yeah, it was very late. So you probably let people know when it opens up. Yep. So your guidance office does an awesome job. There are strings, obviously. You have to go full time. You have to maintain your GPA. At the back end, you have to agree to live and work in New York for as many years as you received it. If you don't fulfill that, it does turn into a loan. So the good news is 0% interest for 10 years. So if you graduate from a SUNY and get a great job offer in a different state, I wouldn't let getting the Excelsior Scholarship hold you back. And just remember, the Excelsior is just tuition only, and it's a last dollar scholarship. So they're going to apply any Pell, any TAP, and then the last dollars to complete the tuition is the Excelsior. So room and board are going to be other ways, probably student loan. I don't have COVID, I trust me. All right, so let's talk about scholarships real quick. This is the area that you have the most control of. Every other thing that we're talking about is just based on it's just based on income, assets, and all that stuff. You have complete control over the scholarships. It is the Wild West. As deep down that rabbit hole you want to go and find scholarships and apply for them, the better off and the more chances you're going to be receiving them. So the first place I would start is right here. And so, yeah, if you want to tell them.
Well, the seniors know. Seniors, where are the scholarships posted? Google Classroom. Usually after Christmas break, we will start getting inundated with scholarships, which means probably 2-3 times a week, Mrs. Halstead or I will post a scholarship. Those scholarships are primarily our local community scholarships. So for example, the Mr. Ed's run is coming up Super Bowl Sunday. After that run, we will post the scholarship. That scholarship is specific to kids going into certain fields, medical, security and law. If you're going into a field of that area, you can apply for that scholarship. That's just one example. There's probably 70 scholarships that will be posted locally within our community. We give out hundreds of thousands of dollars at awards night. Those of you parents who've come before, you've seen that happen. Kids have to really look at the deadlines. You have to look at the criteria. We have a binder in the office that we keep hard copies for the kids. Our parents that are on Google Classroom, you have access to those as well. As a parent, I will tell you the best form of scholarships is to get your child to get official transcripts signed, ready to go, letters of recommendation ready to go, a general essay ready to go, manila envelopes ready to mail out, things like that. Get those stuff prepared. Some of the scholarships will be directed back to my office. So if it's due like Friday, May 5th at 2:30, it needs to be in the counseling office completed by that date. I've had kids bring them in at 3 o'clock and we turn them away because I have 15 other applications ready to go. I need to hand off to a community member. The thousands of dollars free. If your students are all going into medical, I will email my seniors who are going to medical and say, hey guys, this scholarship is open. Please apply. I've hunted kids down. I've gone into classrooms and said, please fill this out. We've lost scholarships over the years because kids do not apply for them, which is very unfortunate. Yeah. So yeah, I like the word, like you said, the students are in control of it. I am here to help. I will help a student with a scholarship application. We will sit down and work with you. The English teachers have all of the seniors write an essay. If you have 5 scholarships and the essay is the same, that's the essay they're looking for. Use the same essay. You don't have to rewrite the essay. Just tweak it to fit that scholarship. Nobody's checking, just like the schools aren't checking. Yeah, scholarships are huge. I can't. My oldest was graduated in 2017. She walked out with $7,000 on awards night on her own doing the scholarships. My middle, maybe $1,000 because I think he did 2. But if your child can do 10 or 15, they could walk out of awards night with thousands of dollars, cash, checks. Most of them are given right to the student to do what they want.
Yeah.
They don't have to put them on their room and board. They can use them to buy a laptop. They can do it, to buy
towels and sheets.
Yeah, stuff for their dorm room. Some of the juniors that are here in a couple months, you'll start to see junior scholarships. I know a couple of my seniors have received a scholarship last year. St. Bonaventure scholarships, I know Jackson got one of them. That just means if Jackson applies to that school, he will get that scholarship. If he applies and gets accepted, that junior scholarship comes to tuition for him. Seniors, same thing. If I like how you said about when you get your financial aid packages back, make sure you bring them in and let us look at them because they like to hide things in the financial. Are you going to talk about that at all or no? Yeah. They do. They hide things in the financial aid packages. They hide fees, and they might say, your expected contribution is $4,000, but they've stuck a loan in there for you, a direct loan or an unsubsidized loan. I tell the kids, bring them in. I'll make copies. We'll highlight them, and we'll kind of go over that with the students and the parents. Because they do. I feel like they kind of trick the kids a little bit. Use us. That's why we're here. Parents, if you have questions, please call.
Yeah.
But scholarships are huge. I can't stress that enough.
Great resource.
Yeah.
Great resource. So where you work? Anybody know if where you work, your company offers scholarships? Yep. For students. If you're a member of a union where you work, I guarantee you the union does. Most of the community organizations, I'm sure, go through the school. But just check, ask around, businesses, local businesses, where you worship, churches. A lot of times have scholarships. I would stay away from that last, their contests and sweepstakes. A lot of times online, just information gathered, so I can use it in different ways. And then at the top of that list, there are some free scholarship finders. Do you have any on your website?
I think we posted like FastWeb, fastweb.com. I think that's probably the best one.
Yeah.
Because it's just so international. So
Yeah. So I would never pay anybody to find scholarships for you. You can do a good job on your own. And there is a new one, and I used to always recommend Sally Mae, the private student loan lender. had a good one on their website. But they bought a company, an upstart called Scholly. It's kind of slang for scholarship, Scholly. And it's awesome. It's really good. So I can wholeheartedly. Okay, and then colleges and universities are going to be a huge source for scholarships. And so remember we talked about getting the financial aid award letters back and negotiating. When you get these back, and they're all going to be on the same format, you're going to spread them out on the kitchen counter, and you're going to look, and it's going to give you the bottom line for each one. It will be beneficial for you to call each and every one, even if your daughter or son's really not interested in going there, and just saying, hey, yeah, we got your financial aid award letter, and we're looking at the others that we've gotten, and you just say this. My daughter or son really wants to go to your college, but we're looking at other offers that are much better, and we want to know what you can do about that. So we put the ball back in their court. And a lot of times colleges will have an official appeal process that you go through. A lot of times you'll just talk to the folks in the admissions office, but I guarantee you they're going to find more scholarship money available. And so work it, because you're in the driver's seat now. After a decision is made, they're on to the next class next year. So this is the only time when you're going to really be in the driver's seat as negotiating to get the cost down, so that your students graduate with less debt, or you personally don't have to pay as much.
Like you mentioned, appeal, even if you're in the middle of a semester and something happens to your family or something, a job or a death, you can always contact the financial aid office and ask for a hardship appeal.
Right.
They're very good. They might not do it that semester, but they would take it into consideration the following semester.
So a couple things of advice. The scholarships that you get from the college, make sure you negotiate all 4 years. You're going to need to be able to plan your family's budget for all 4 years. A lot of colleges will offer a really good one freshman year to get the student to choose them, and then it'll step down and go away. Negotiate all 4 years right across the board, consistent, and then get it in writing, and just keep that. For the private scholarships, I definitely would ask them to send the money directly to you, the family, and then registration day, you can just write it, go into the registrar's office and write a check. You don't even have to tell them where it came from. A lot of organizations, though, will only send it to the college, and that's fine. It's their right to do with it as they want. Colleges are going to ask you how much private scholarship money that you have received. They're going to ask you to report that to them. I'm here to tell you that it's not in your best interest to do that. You are under no obligation to do that. I know for a fact that colleges will be less likely to negotiate with you if they start seeing a lot of money pouring in for your daughter and son's education. Right? So that's your business. You let them worry about their business, and then you pressure them to bump up the amount of financial aid they're supporting too. Right?
So should we lie or just ignore it?
I'm an honest.
It's not lying, they don't need to know you have what you have.
Yeah.
It's
Like
none of their business.
if your student is busting their you know what at the kitchen table every Saturday morning, filling out applications and tweaking their essay and getting everything around, and they work their tail off, all spring, and they reap the rewards of that. I don't think they should be punished for that in the end and get less financial aid than somebody that's not doing it. That's all.
So how do we address that though, when they question it, what should our response be when they ask?
Well, I'll leave that between you and the good Lord. You can say, well, I'm not aware, or I don't know.
Or NA.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's not a conversation. Usually it's just written on the
Usually when they're asking, scholarships haven't been awarded yet, so they might not, like, if they're asking now, like, if they're asking during scholarship application, like, some of ours will ask that, what else are you receiving?
Yeah.
They just don't know what they're getting. Most of the kids won't know what they're getting until awards night anyway, which is middle of June.
I mean, scholarships, it's such a long season for it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're calling a college to negotiate with them, is it better for the
I really think it's better for the parent. I think an adult, you know, especially if one or more of the other parent is a salesperson or
They might say, is the student there with you? Sometimes they've done that.
Yeah.
Sitting there with you.
yeah. But I would probably take it. Okay. Work study, you're going to see that. That's an amount that the student's going to be awarded, the maximum that they can earn. Work study is a great program. All of my kids participated in it. A lot of times you can get a lot of good experience related to the area of study. The student gets paid every week or every 2 weeks. They're very flexible with the schedule. They're obviously not going to schedule work while classes are going. If the student has a big project and needs some extra time, very flexible. So a lot of students use this for their spending money and stuff. So they want to borrow. All right, federal loans have a lot of advantages over private student loans. There's two kinds of federal loans. There's subsidized and unsubsidized, but all of them come with the fact that there's no underwriting, meaning every student, and it's based on need. Every student gets the same interest rate. There's no payments due while the student's in school. There's in-school deferment, 6-month grace period after college. After college, there's some really flexible repayment plans. They can tailor the payment to fit within the student's budget. There's some student loan forgiveness programs available depending on where you work or if you become disabled. So a lot of advantages. So subsidized loans, there's no interest charged to the student while they're in school. So the same amount borrowed freshman year, fall semester, same amount owed 4.5 years later when payments start. Unsubsidized loans, even though there's no payments due, the interest starts accruing, and that is what is left in the student account after college pays itself. And that's why it's important to return any that you don't need. So Congress sets the interest rate every July 1st. It's tied to the 10-year Treasury note. Interest rates, as you know, have gone up. It's 5.5% this year. Back in 2019, it was under 3%. So every year, the interest rate is going to change. What happens, just so you know, every year you fill out the FAFSA, every year you qualify for a certain amount of federal student loans. All the loans for all 4 years go to one servicer at the end, and the servicer sends out one bill, one payment is made, and then the servicer disperses it amongst all the loans. So they're all paid off at the same time. Unsubsidized loans, same for undergrad, but if your student goes on for graduate work, they don't qualify for subsidized, only the unsubsidized, and it's a higher interest rate. See that 7%. And then what happens, why these are really bad, is because let's say no payments are due while the student's in school, interest keeps accruing, keeps adding. Once payments start, all that interest that's accrued is capitalized on the principal, raises the principal balance, and then the new interest and payment are calculated off of that. So it's a snowball effect. You're paying interest on interest. So that's why you really want to minimize that. You can even, if you want, we did this, set up quarterly payments throughout all of college for just the interest. And a lot of people even use like work study money just to pay the interest quarterly, just so it's not capitalized, the interest. All right, so if you max out all the grants, really worked hard on the scholarships, maxed out your direct loans, the student did, college is going to offer the parents federal loans called plus loans, parent plus loans. The interest rate is even higher yet. It's 8%. There's minimal underwriting, so only like bankruptcy or foreclosure or something like that in your credit report is going to disqualify you. But so these are loans that parents can take out from the Department of Education for their students' education. And just be aware, they don't have any of the in-school deferment. There's not really flexible repayment plans afterwards. It's pretty much basically a signature loan. So if you've got good credit, you could probably still borrow at a cheaper rate than private money. All right, and then private student loans, very bad for students because students, number one, don't have a job, they don't have the credit, you don't even have a degree. So if a student tries, they're always going to be requiring a cosigner. The cosigners are just as responsible for a loan as the borrower. And so private lenders, they underwrite, so your interest rate is being based on your credit score. And generally, payments start right away, interest starts right away. But for parents, it may fit. It might be a good option. So they come from banks, credit unions, peer-to-peer lenders like anybody here at SoFi.com, Lending Club. These are some online lenders. They generally have very good interest rates because they don't have brick and mortar. And then I just want to highlight the last part there. Private colleges and universities can offer loan programs through the college. And better yet, this is something that I would ask if they don't advertise it, a payment plan. I know where my brother-in-law went, they offered a payment plan. So I think it was like a $6,000 balance after maxed out all the financial aid. And so my father-in-law just sent them a $500 check every month. And so long as that balance was cleared up by the next school year, they were good. So it was no interest. You get cash flow all year, and it worked out great. So inquire. Yeah. All right. And then we'll end here with the financial aid award letter information sheet. Talked about this throughout it. This is part of New York State law. Every college and university in New York must use a standardized form. It's on our website. Yeah. But yeah, it tries to simplify financial aid. It takes the cost of attendance, subtracts out all the financial aid, and just gives you a bottom line. And the purpose is to give families apples to apples to compare. And then really it is to start negotiating with colleges to get that actual bottom line down. So the goal is a free ride, right? You know it happens more often than you know. Yeah. So I worked with a guy, he has since retired. He has 4 sons, and the first 3 sons all went to West Point. I said, Bill, my goodness, you're raising superhumans here. Well, the 4th son, guess where he did not want to go? West Point. So he really wanted to go to RIT. So they were looking at other, like RPI and other Clarkson up in the North Country. They're looking at other, but he really wanted to go to RIT. Got the financial aid package back, and there was a $12,000 gap. So Bill comes to me and he says, what should I do? Should I borrow against my retirement? Should I take out a home equity loan? I said, no. You should go back to RIT and say, hey, we're looking at other colleges, and they are offering better packages. What can you do? Well, RIT does have a formal appeal process. So he went through that process, and guess what? They found scholarships. And his bottom line was, so it just, you're buying a big ticket item. Anyway, we also require that they put graduation rate, the median borrowing rate, and the loan default rate on this. And I think that's kind of helpful, just so you can compare. You know, if the graduation rate for one college is much lower than the others in the group that you're looking at, you might want to ask them why. You know, maybe they're not providing student support they need to, or maybe they have a tough academic program. It's not too late. So 3 weeks ago, I was down in New York City, and I was at the Special Music School at Lincoln Center. You know what Lincoln Center is, right? The opera, the New York Philharmonic. So I walk into this building, and there's music everywhere. And there's a big crowd of people. And so we get to this point, and I said, yeah, if the graduation rate is really low, you might want to ask about that. And a mother said over there, yeah, you got a gig. I said, it's a music school. He got a gig, which means he doesn't need to go finish college. He's doing what he's dreaming of, playing music. Right. Anyway, so every scenario. I thought that was kind of cool. All right, just to leave something good here. New York State has a loan forgiveness program for students that graduate from a New York State high school and any New York State college or university, public or private. So get on your feet. For the first 2 years after graduation, New York will make the students' loan payments to the student loan servicer for the student. Aren't we generous taxpayers? We are. Anyway, it's designed really to encourage graduates to stay in New York. We want that. And it's designed to at least start the student loan repayment if the student's not doing it, allowing them to settle in, get an apartment, and get set up. So New York State Higher Education, the same state agency that does TAP, the Excelsior Scholarship, administers this. So just tuck that in the back and maybe bring it back up after graduation. All right, does anybody have any questions?